Hey everybody, it's Kerravala from ZK Research here, and I'm with Juanita Coley from Solid Rock Consulting for What's New in CX, Episode 7. We're actually at WebexOne.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking Webex.
Yes.
But let's rewind the clock a little bit, because both of you and I have been doing a lot of traveling.
Yes.
I think since we talked last, we had Zoomtopia, the Five9 Analyst Event, and WebexOne. And so why don't we start with the Five9 Analyst Event? Anything new, exciting there?
Well, so we did the Five9 Analyst Event that was out in Cabo, and they talked about how the market is evolving and what their response is to this ever-evolving market. And that was Agent AI, the Agentic AI in that conversation, as well as AQM, which does not mean automated quality management. It means agentic quality management, right?
That's confusing, actually.
And so they talked about that, which I thought was interesting because traditionally the industry thinks of AQM as automated quality management. And so they're saying agentic, but for good reason. I just think it's kind of a little bit confusing.
Yes.
So the good reason is that with AQM, it's going to listen to these interactions, and then it's going to do rerouting to the appropriate agent based on how they are being scored on the interaction. So that is actually a really great use case. I think there's just a piece in the middle, which I talked about at the analyst event, that's missing, right? Because AQM is then coming in on the post end of that, then rerouting. You have to think about pre and during about how we forecast now based on these interactions, how we schedule, and make sure that we are routing to the right places and predicting, because the routing is only based on who's available at the time, right?
Yes.
That is, we need to be have a little bit more forethought to think about, okay, so based on how quality is happening and the agents that we have, how are we forecasting the interactions that's going to come in? So that was the big news at the Five9 Analyst Event.
Yeah, what did you think of the positioning they had too? Because I saw some slides from Mike Birkeland was talking about they're making the shift from a CCaaS company to an AI company. And I disagree with that, because Genesys has tried that messaging too. That in fact, when they filed the REST-1, they classified themselves as an AI company. To me, Five9, TalkDesk, Webex, they're not AI companies. They're companies that use AI to make their product better. But to me, OpenAI is an AI company, right? And so I was curious what you thought of that.
No, I honestly agree with you, right? So that was a big thing. It was like, hey, we are an AI company. And I really believe Five9 has to really think about themselves because they have a strong product. And so I think that they really have to think about themselves as more of a educator in the space and how they're thinking about how they're evolving with the ever-changing market and how they're bringing their customers along. But to position as an AI company, I'm not really sure that that's the right direction to go.
Yeah, and then what about this? This is a company that's had tremendous upheaval at the leadership position, right? In fact, I was surprised they actually did the analyst event, given that Mike Birkeland's on his way out. Because whatever vision they're going to roll out now is likely going to change with the new leader. Did they talk a lot about anything about leadership and where that's going? And
well, of course, Mike made the announcement earlier this year that he was going to be retiring. He's still staying on as chairman of the board. And they've brought in a lot of great talent, right? So they've had a lot of movements around the leadership team, but they've also brought in a lot of great talent, which I do believe that the talent that they've brought in is going to help them when it comes to what they envision from a product roadmap perspective. So I do think that the talent that they've brought in is going to help them with that. But there's just so much movement right now.
Well, they still need a CMO, and I suspect that's not going to happen until they have a CEO, right? And then Tuckness, I guess, got moved up to head of sales and president, which I think makes some sense. Although I thought, Andy would have been in that role. So. So we'll see, I guess, right, as far as leadership goes. But yeah.
A lot of their movement from a leadership perspective, and I don't know if this was intentional or what, but a lot of their movement seems to, from what has been brought in, has been around the product side. Yeah. And I think that's because of their focus, so heavily focused on being the AI company. Yeah.
All right, well, let's close out Five9. Overall, good event, though, you thought?
Yeah, I think that they accomplished what they set out to accomplish. They wanted to talk through how the market is evolving, how they're responding to that, which is to be an AI company, and they talked about what that looks like for them, and what their customers are saying and their partners are saying. So those were the three themes that kind of rose to the top, and I think they accomplished that.
Yeah. So now Zoomtopia, I thought Zoom's an interesting company in that they started off as a meeting company. They've had just unbelievable momentum when it comes to contact center.
Moving at the speed of Zoom,
Yeah,
like Eric
yeah.
likes to say.
And while they didn't have a ton of contact center specific, they had a lot of announcements in the area of AI. So now AI Companion's fully compatible across UC, CC. I think, one of the interesting things to watch for, Juanita, is that we, as an industry, we've talked about UC-CC integration, and I think it's been hard. We haven't seen a lot of deployments of it. Mid-market, small market, sure, but the buyers are separate and things like that. But once you apply AI to it, and you have that common data set, UC-CC, back office, front office, I think that could act as a bit of a tipping point. And none of the pure play CCaaS vendors have UC. Zoom is the biggest UC vendor, and they also have CC. And there's a lot of interesting implications of what they could do, and they've applied it to a lot of the industry verticals, right? So they, I think when you look at like WorkVivo, from a frontline worker perspective, they've done a nice job there, because you do need some customer information in back office. But to me, Zoom has been kind of a work in progress for contact center, but to me, this Zoomtopia, they've really arrived, and they're winning big deals now, and it's been in fact, one of the partners, one of their bigger partners, Converge Technology Pros, their CEO, Joe Rittenhouse, said to me, he was very skeptical when Zoom got into contact center. He said the speed at which they've caught up in features and are now at feature parity has really been unbelievable.
Yeah, they're winning big in some big deals when it comes to contact centers. So they wanted to be in the space of mid-market and enterprise when it came to contact center, and I'm running across them in, with customers. And so I think that they are definitely moving at the speed of Zoom, but also accomplishing what they're setting out. It's not just throwing things to the wall and seeing what sticks.
And I like how they've taken really almost the same approach as NICE, where they understand when you buy CCaaS, it's not just CCaaS, right? So they built their own WFM, right? They've got some partnerships, I think, around quality management, and so they're really taking this full stack approach to CX.
And you have to, right? Like, this is the thing that I've been screaming for the longest, right? If we're thinking about the customer journey, right, how do we isolate CRMs and CCaaS and WFM if we're thinking about the holistic customer journey? And so there's going to be a time and place and space, especially as AI moves into the forefront, that we have to think about all of the technologies and how they either, if you're a company, how you're becoming a CX first type of company where you're thinking about UC, contact center, CRM, you're thinking about all the things, or you're open enough to play and integrate with all of those technologies that are along that customer journey. I think that's important.
Yeah, so I'd say that, summing up Zoomtopia, if I were to think about previous Zoomtopias and Zoom CX, like Zoom Contact Center, it was really about catch up, right? And I thought this was the first year that they really almost, to coin a colloquialism, I guess, this is the first year they flexed, right? And they were able to no longer say we're the new entrant, we're here to stay. And in fact, we're taking a leadership position and we're going to change the industry, so. Yeah. All right, WebexOne, here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, and so, we got a lot of updates on a lot of different products. Webex's contact center is, it's an interesting story because their value proposition isn't really kind of speeds and feeds and things like that. They're trying to really push this one Cisco story in which they can offer integrated security. They have all the networking knowledge. They have Thousand Eyes and Splunk. And so if you've got a call that's, say, not performing very well, they can very quickly go to a dashboard and, and show you. They got AI Canvas now, which is a new management tool. I didn't think that really kind of came out in the presentations they gave us. I thought Anurag Dhingra talked about that at a high level, but then they really quickly got into product, right? And so I think they've got a very interesting value proposition for customers. I think it's kind of hard to understand unless you're like really understand networking and security. And then I do wonder how you sell it, right? And so kind of your thoughts on where Webex is at the contact center.
Man, I'm so excited. When I heard Vinod say AHT, that was a wrap for me, right? Because I understand that the sheer fact that he knows what average handle time is.
Yeah.
And
Well, he's a contact center guy.
right, but he's talking about how the metrics are changing.
Yes.
Right, so the metrics, and I've been
yes,
saying this,
yeah.
right? So I've been saying, hey, the metrics are changing. So the way we measure success, and you see, it's kind of hard for me to sit still, right?
Yeah.
The way we measure success, that should be the determining factor for how we think about how we're creating product and how we are, how the space is evolving. Not we're just creating product just because it's going to sell.
Yeah.
And then the customer is confused, and then people are losing their jobs because of X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right? So when he said AHT and he started to talk through the employee experience, the agent experience, and all of those different things, and how that's informing what they're bringing into that one pane, that single pane of glass, and all those different things, I just got really excited, and I was like, okay, they get it. They get it. Whether they're there or not is a different conversation, but I think that what they're doing is going to inform a great product, and I think that I'm super excited to see where they're going. And I happened to run across a customer the other day, accidentally. I just was talking to them. They were talking about how they're using WebEx all throughout the journey. So they're using it for a contact center, they're using WFM,
Yep.
they're using the whole thing, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll find them here obviously at WebexOne. Customers that are using the whole Cisco stack. And I do think Cisco is by revenue the number 1 or 2 security vendor, right? And so they've got this huge security business. When you think about the role that AI is going to play, how do you fuel AI with data? Well, what's the big concern about AI? The data security. So if Cisco can bring the security to the customer data that gets used to fuel CX interactions,
Yes.
that to me seems like it's just such a natural play for them and a big competitive differentiator.
Yeah, that was another thing that stood out to me, is the data first, right? They talked about data being the core, and we talk a lot about that and form on that data strategy, having a clear data strategy, making sure that your data is collected, it's not siloed in all of these different places, it's linked so you have integration, you're able to evaluate your data, you're able to have it accessible, and it's being able to be retained. So without clear data, you just have a lot of information in different places, but you don't have true insights. And it seems like that's the platform that they're trying to enable, is to have customers have insights.
Yeah, and on the other area that I thought they're really good at, and I thought was a bit of a miss here, and maybe because this is a pure WebEx event, is the hybrid story, right? So they have a lot. I mean, Cisco's got a bigger install base of on-prem than maybe everybody, but maybe Avaya. They might be bigger. It's close though, and a lot of those big government customers, a lot of the big international customers, right, with data sovereignty rules, don't want to go full cloud. They want to keep their data on-prem, and Cisco is certainly one of the few companies that can actually deliver a real hybrid story, right? And they didn't touch on that, but I guess I'm curious. When you talk to customers, how many like is with AI, has there been like a reemergence of interest in hybrid deployments versus purely putting everything in the cloud?
Yeah, it's a big concern, especially in government, right? So I'm seeing that in the government space. I'm seeing it a lot in the utility space as well, right? That every customer is not like raring to go to the cloud, right? So they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we still stay ahead of the curve and think about cloud, but how do we also keep that security? And for them, that is a hybrid type of conversation. So I'm seeing that a lot in government and in the utility space is mainly where I run across that as a concern.
Yeah, I'm seeing it like in healthcare, financial services, And then again, when you get overseas and you talk to, a lot of the EU countries, certainly over in Asia. I just got back from a trip where I was in Australia and Japan. Those countries tend to have just an affinity for, localized data, and a lot of that means keeping it on-prem. And like I said, none of the pure plays can do it, and Cisco, is arguably the single biggest vendor that can deliver cloud any way you want it. So yeah.
What do you think the news of the week is?
At WebexOne?
For just over the ones that we've covered so far, like what do you think in the news of the week is?
That's a good question.
You could only pick one.
I can only pick one?
You can only pick one.
I like I thought, again, not from a public perspective, but some of the sidebar conversations we've had, the growth of the realization of One Cisco. I think this is something they've been working on a long time. I think when Jeetu Patel became Chief Product Officer, he was really on a mission to be able to pull all things Cisco together. And I think you're seeing that here, right? And so the ability to deliver secure network-enabled collaboration. I think when Snorra took the stage, he said, we're the only company that can deliver meetings, calling, contact center, with the security portfolio built on a network, platform. And I thought he described that pretty well. And he's right, that they are the only one. But I think there's been so much vision around the platform that I think you actually saw it realized here.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think they're the ones. If I'm thinking about like what's new in CX or the theme of the show, I really think WebEx is one to watch because of the reasons, right? We've kind of already listed here, the security, the end-to-end model of what they're thinking about from a customer journey perspective, all the different reasons. I think they're one to watch for sure.
Yeah, so let me ask you, when you look out ahead, so we've been to a lot of analyst events, and I'm actually flying to London tomorrow to go to Amazon Connect's event.
Okay.
We've got TalkDesk coming up, right? So we'll be through the gamut soon, right? I guess 597 CX Summit as well. So it seems that the vision from the vendors and the capabilities are far outpacing deployments, right? And is 2026 going to be the year of AI in the contact center, or is it still going to be a year of kicking tires, you think? And you're way closer to this than I am.
Yeah,
so.
you know what? It's something interesting that I think it was Chan that mentioned, or it might have been Vinod that mentioned, I don't remember, but it stood out to me that they talked about, they had like this little diagram about 1, 2, 3, 4, and how they start with the business consulting and really understanding, hey, what the customer is trying to do and all of the different things. And so I think in 2026, what is really going to happen, right, and even at Five9 event, when we kind of talked to some of the customers were talking about, hey, it's just so much out there, right?
Yeah.
As it relates to AI, we aren't even a third of the way through, right? For whatever reason, lack of process or just the technology's outpacing us at this point. And so what I'm hearing from customers is that, hey, we got to get our act together, right? We really have to start to think about process. We have to think about what are the outcomes that we're expecting from the technology. So that's what I think 2026 is really going to be about. It's really going to be about, hey, the vendors have proven that they'll build whatever it is we ask them to build, right? and they have the features and all the different things. But I think what customers are really asking for right now, what I'm seeing customers ask for is, okay, how do I make this real? How do I get my house in order, if you will? And so that I can actually fully adopt and use the technology based on the outcomes. How do I change the metrics that I'm measuring success based off of? Those are the things that I think.
You bring up a good point there, because I don't think we know how. See, to me, there's no industry that's more metric driven than contact center, right? They know if I can shave 2 seconds off average handle time, it means this much money. But in the agentic AI, our average handle time is kind of meaningless now, right? And so what are those new metrics that we should measure them by? And so I think companies are going through that process of rethinking it. I'm also fascinated to see, like, once we start doing like AI inferred CSAT, right? Like you get a real CSAT score, because as you know, right, you give 1s or 5s, right? And so I don't think, I've talked to some companies, they have no idea what their CSAT really is, right? So there's a whole bunch of new metrics are going to be capable of calculating, and that I think is going to, I think once we figure that out, it'll help us move forward with AI, because we'll have something to measure it against, because we love to measure things in contact center.
Yeah,
right?
that's the name of the game. What can we measure today?
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, that sounds good.
Okay. And I think next time I'll see you in person, it's probably Nashville or Talk Desk in Savannah, right?
Yep.
So, all right. So on behalf of Juanita Coley, I'm Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, saying thanks for watching. Make sure you give us a like and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of What's New in CX.